Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Self-love through freedom and connection. So feel free to connect to the brave never fall on these social media platforms. If you find anything of value in this following podcast, hit that like button, subscribe and share, and support the brave and bold tribe growing one purposeful soul at a time. How are you feeling? Take a moment to do a self-check-in for yourself. How are you feeling mentally? How are you feeling emotionally? How are you feeling physically? How are you feeling spiritually? Are you feeling balanced? Are you still journeying on an intentional, purposeful path? How are you feeling? Balancing yourself is a healthy daily practice that will reliably keep you in harmony with your entire mind, body, heart, and soul. Clear your mind. Take a moment of silence for yourself right now in the moment. You are here now. How are you feeling? Your life begins anew every time you see the sun and moon. They represent the transcendence of time. Your perception of time and someone else's perception of time is always going to be a little bit different. The one thing that's equal, though, is that we both have to experience the transcendence of time. What it is, what we understand about it, what we don't understand about it, it inevitably has an effect on every individual from the time we wake up to the time we close our eyes at night. If things were out of place, we would feel out of place. If the sun did not come out and it was just a little dimmer than normal, you would feel not only the effects of it, you would visually be able to see it. The world would be affected by it because the sun has purpose. It has to do what it has to do. And when those rays come down here, they have an effect on every single thing, every place, every person. Same with the moon. If the moon was either too much brighter or dimmer every single night, things would look different. The moon would look different. It would have an effect on us. We wouldn't be able to see as well if it was dimmer, and if it was too bright, then we wouldn't get the true effects of the moon versus the sun. We need the balance, the light and the dark. Our bodies are geared towards it. We have evolved underneath it, if you believe in evolution, or even if you don't. We've lived as a human species under the sun and moon for so long that our bodies needs them, which gives them purpose. The sun and moon has purpose. And I always thought, if those two orbs up in the sky have purpose, and we're connected to everything in this world, that means you have purpose as well. But unlike the sun and the moon, they don't think about what their purpose is. They do. They are being. They are here now. What happens tomorrow and yesterday does not matter to them. Nor should it matter to you. We can take it all in and use them as tools, but what ultimately matters is what you're doing and your purpose right now. Life can be viewed loosely with freedom and perception of the unknown, or tightly with restrictions, mathematically formulating every hour. The day and night cycle can be essentially broken down into two halves: 12 hours of light, 12 hours of darkness. Yin and yang is all about balance. The sun and moon affects each of us differently. Whether we are all aware of it or not, it is having an effect. Some pull energy and positivity from the sun, yet fear the darkness of night, forcing their mood in a cold direction. Others may see the day as too bright, full of lost opportunities and countless people scrambling in all directions, while the night eases them, comforts them, and the silence is as brilliant as the moonlight itself. Then there's everyone in between. The sun and moon are powerful, majestic, and more awe-inspiring than too many of us give them credit for. To look upon the sun and moon and not feel that there is so much more to life in all forms is to say we don't see ourselves in the same way. If the sun and moon are brilliant and awe-inspiring, then so are you. We all are, because although we are free, we are all connected in this vast universe. Everything, every place, and everyone has a valuable effect on each other. Each day that rises and night that falls, the universe is expanding. Our lives need to be the same, forever growing into a bigger and better version of who and what we are. If the sun produces energy, then that means you have an infinite supply of drive. If the moon produces comfort, then that means you have an infinite supply of contentment. We get all of those valuable gifts from the sun and moon. The light from both are magical, powerful, beautiful, and purposeful. Without them, we would be nothing. Enterprise of Emotions, Strength, and Happiness, Episode 2, Effects of the Sun and Moon. What better time is there to put your life in perspective than to be able to go out in the morning, regardless of what the weather is, and know that there's light, that the sun is still there, and the same goes for at night. What better feeling to know that when that sun goes down and the moon is out there, whether you can see it or not, you know it's there. If it wasn't there, the world would be going to shit real quick. It'd be a lot darker outside, and you certainly would feel different. When I was young, I used to always think about the sun and the moon, obviously, because they're right there. And I had the best spot ever when I was younger in my house. because I could sit there in my top bunk. My sister slept on the bottom bunk, and it was a window, and it was triangular, and I could look out, and a lot of times I could see the sun for most of the day, especially when I had to take naps. I never took naps. I just laid there and stared out the freaking window. But then there was a window next to me, and at night I could see the moon very clearly. And I would just sit there and stare at them for hours and wonder, how far away are they? How big are they? How cool would it be to walk on the moon? How amazing would it be to get as close to the sun as possible without destroying yourself, but to get to see things up close? And then with technology, obviously, we can see that now. We can, once they came up with books that were detailed. I mean, I had a book when I was in my 20s that I read every single day. I read that book constantly. It was just called The Planets, and it was just a beautiful look at our solar system and beyond the solar system. And that's when high def pictures started to come into play, and they could recreate things digitally. And it made me start thinking, when I was reading all that, it correlated, seeing all that, it correlated with me actually starting to move away from traditional church life, even though I enjoyed going to church. But I started finding myself more connected to the universe in a way where I didn't feel like it was aligning with some of the church things. And, I had a lot of conversations with my mother about this stuff, and my pastor, and my friends who still go to the church. And I still go to church with friends and family. If it's a nice place and there are good people there, I'm going to go, because I see a lot of value in church. I really do. I think it's extremely important to not only get those values, but be seated and listen to someone else speak and feel the energy from other people in the room. And it's a healthy way. Sunday is the beginning of the week for me, and that has been instilled in me ever since I was a kid. I have been going to church. If it was Sunday school, whatever it was, I have been involved in some kind of a spiritual aspect of something in my life. The years that I didn't, those were bad years. Those were the years that when I left the church, I didn't find Tao, obviously, just then. So I went through some problems. When you leave positive people behind you and you choose to move forward, now, do I regret it? No, I still would go back and do the same thing, because I needed those experiences. I needed to have my life framed in that way. But it really, when you go back and you take everything back, I always say, your life is about structure. You are being built, whether you like it or not. Your body is growing. Your body is evolving. Life is creating you. If you're not going to help create your life, the things and the people and the places around you will help create your life for you. And why wouldn't you want to be the master, the person in charge of your creation? This is your life. So when you sit back and you're being very passive and you're not being very aggressive about who you are and why you're not fulfilled and what your purpose is, when we sit back and we start saying to ourselves, it is what it is, too much, because it is what it is a lot of times. The problem is that some people get to that quote unquote it is what it is mentality, and it starts to define them. And you start asking yourself, well, what is the what and what is the is, brother or sister? What are you doing? You've been saying that for so long. What are where are the results? What's going on here? And we've all done it. But I think as an individual, we have to take responsibility for what is creating us around us that we don't have control over. What are we bouncing up against, good or bad, that is having an effect on our creation, especially if we're actively creating? What's bouncing up against us that's going to be in our lives, and we can't really just necessarily just toss them away. We have to deal with these things, and they're shaping our story, and they're creating a version of us we may or may not like, and we have to be aware of that. And I started thinking when I had my awakening a few years ago, and I woke up and said, enough's enough. It's time to get going in life. It's time to figure out why I'm unhappy and figure out all these things I'm afraid of. I had to go back and be like, okay, what is it about you? What is it about life that you enjoy that you have no freaking control over? That's a good place to start. If you don't know who you are, at least look at the things around you and start shaping those things. And I always recommend to people, just like the sun and the moon, there is no end. The sun and the moon are going to keep coming regardless of what we're doing down here. And your life is doing the exact same thing. Your life is going to keep going. No matter what you're doing, it's going to keep going. But you have, unlike the sun and the moon, you have a lot more control over what you're doing every day. You're not stuck in one spot. Now, they have very big jobs to do, keeping all of us alive down here and making sure this planet is sustainable for life. but they don't have to be. There are other planets in the solar system that don't have. There are rocky planets, the rocky planets that don't have the makeup. They're too close to the sun. They're too far away. They don't have a big enough moon. There's a lot of things that goes into play. We're extremely lucky here on this planet. Extremely lucky. If you just look at our solar system, look how lucky we are. It's going to be a long time before our sun decides before our sun goes supernova and condenses into a white dwarf, and there will be no solar system. It'll just be this pale, dim, cold light where our solar system used to be, and the universe will not even care. So it's when you put things in perspective like that, you start thinking about what is things in life that makes you happy. And that was a question I asked myself. What is it that you look forward to each day? And I started noticing that one of the things that was driving me crazy was that I was indoors way too much. And this is for me. And everybody's different. Some people enjoy indoors, and we'll get to that in a second, because it's not necessary that you have to go out. There are ways to do things both ways. But for me, I started realizing the more I was outdoors doing active training or walking or running or doing something that was not indoors, I felt much better. I started getting up earlier. I wanted more of my day. I used to have a night job, and I would wake up at 10:30 and then get home at sometimes midnight. And especially in the wintertime in the Midwest, you're not going to see the sun with that schedule. You may see it for a few hours, but those few hours I'm in a building. And it had an effect on me big time. And it was one of the reasons why I was saying to myself, you're going to have to figure out how to get outdoors more. But if you can't get outdoors more, at least work during the day. So I said, you know what? I'm not working during the day anymore. I'm doing at night anymore. I need a day job. And I started shifting that. I got to the day job. And actually, I was making these changes before I had my awakening. I actually had the awakening after I started doing these things actively. Say, okay, I want to get up earlier. I want to start my day earlier, and I want to go to bed at a reasonable time. And I want to see the full effect of the day. I'm more of a day person than I'm a night person. I like both. I love both. But I'm more of a night person on the weekends. I started shaping my ideas about myself even more. I know I don't want to work on weekends. Weekends is my nighttime. I like night on weekends. So I'm like, how do we piece this together? And it all came from the simple concept of me saying something as simple as, you like to be awake during the day. Why don't you fix that? You like to hang out on the weekends at night. That means don't work on weekends. Find a job where you don't. You work during the day and not nights and have weekends off. And that's what I did. And I think when you start doing stuff like that, I thought, okay, well, if I could do this, then what else could I add or take away from? And then I started focusing, expanding on the people and places and things that just didn't align with me. That just did not align with me. Excuse me. When you think about the early version of the solar system, and the sun is coalescing, and all the debris is getting coalesced into planets and moons, and our what was going to be our second sun, Jupiter, turned out to be just a big giant gas planet. When all the cosmic dust settled, I looked at that and was like, that's kind of what it's like when you start to wake up and start to really go after fixing your life. Things just start turning and moving. You get rid of what you don't need. The things that you do need will coalesce together, and they'll be there for you. Some things are bigger than others. Some things may be here for a little bit. Some things may stay for longer. But just like the sun does not have an infinite supply of energy, it's going to die one day. So are we. So I kind of viewed my life like that. I'm like, that is very similar to how the sun coalesced in not only into itself, but created all these things around it that gave it purpose. If someone looks at the sun and says it has no purpose, what? It has the biggest purpose in our solar system. It is the king or queen, whichever one you want to call it, of the solar system. It has a huge purpose. Now you look at the moon. If you say it doesn't have a purpose, what? You're only alive right now because of the moon. There would not be any life here on this planet without the moon. There may be some very small little bacterial life, but there certainly wouldn't be human beings standing here and creating a podcast for people to try to help them, or people out there who are helping other people, and millions of people's creating cities and cultures that have fought wars for thousands of years. None of that would be here without that beautiful, majestic moon in the sky every night when we go to bed. The question is, what are we going to do about all that knowledge? Because I don't think a lot of people think about it. I know if I hadn't just had a curiosity about it when I was a kid and it just filtered through the rest of my life, I wouldn't think about it. And it was a time in my life, even though it was something important to me, I still didn't think about it. I kind of forgot about my love for the sun and the moon, how much my body needs to be outside. And that's where it brings us to this. Regardless of what we feel about the sun and the moon, let's think about it in a different way. If you don't want to think about the sun and the moon, toss those aside and let's change the terminology. Let's think about light and dark. And if you're the type of person where you feel like you get more things accomplished during the day, because people say, I'm a day person or I'm a night person. If you're the type of person you get more things done during the day, would it make sense for you to not have more of your time during the day? And if you like day, would it make more sense for you to go outside and actually do more outside? And the same for night. There are a lot of people who are night owls, who work at night, who love night, and there's nothing wrong with that. They love to be indoors at night, or they love to be outdoors at night, just like the day people. They just do it at night. I'm one of those people. I didn't have a problem working a night shift because I loved night. I loved when I got home, I could sit out and it was quiet. Nobody was around. I just kind of felt like, oh, this is so relaxing. I can go outside and do what I want to do in peace and quiet. And you see the benefits of both. The effects that the sun and the moon, when we talk about light and dark, has on us, I think each individual has to ask themselves that question. But it's undeniable that it has an effect. You know, if a person stays indoors for way too long, you know, let's just use an example. Let's talk about prison for a second. You get an hour of time outside. No matter what the temperature is, no matter what time of year, what the seasons are, you get to go outside for 1 hour. The rest of the time you're in confinement with very little window space and very poor lighting, artificial lighting. And they do this for years. Some people for decades. There's no way that doesn't have an effect on you. There's absolutely no way. If that was the case, then everybody would be doing that, right? If it had a positive benefit, what is the point of us having anything to do with outside? Why do we have decks in our homes? Why do we have parks? Why do we have vacation spots that are all outside? You know, if we have theme parks, how come they're not like circus tents? We're all inside and they're like indoor shopping malls. No, we have theme parks and stuff outside because it's part of the experience. Having the sun beat down on you, it gives you a positive energy. It would not be the same if the theme park only opened up at night and they closed during the day. Could you imagine going to a theme park or going to a vacation, but you can only do it at night and no daytime ever? The vacation would be great, but you're going to feel like, you know, I feel like I didn't see a whole lot. It may seem cool for the first couple of days, but after a while, especially when you know there are beautiful things around you that you can't see fully, it's going to have an effect. And we can take all this and think about ourselves in the same exact way. When you're in a place of positivity, when you're shining and you're in your element of who you are, and you know what you're doing, you feel fulfilled, and every day you have purpose, you're going to feel like there's more to you than if you're in a negative space, a place of darkness, and it's all pretty much lonely and solitude and silence. If that's a prolonged thing, it's going to have an effect on you. It just does. Yes, it depends on what type of person we are. Some people love that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as long as that person is aligned with that type of lifestyle, as long as the person feels fulfillment and purpose within it, what difference does it make if you're a daytime person or a nighttime person? What difference does it make if you go outside and hang out all day, or if you only hang out outside at night? To each his own. It is not anyone else's responsibility to figure out what someone else's purpose is or what time of day they should do it. Each individual has to figure that out for themselves. I always think that a lot of people don't give themselves the opportunity to even see what the benefits would be on the other side. To see what it's like to maybe stay up an extra hour and go outside and journal under the moonlight versus journaling midday. It has an effect. There is a tremendous effect. There's a reason why I do these podcasts outside. I believe they're just simply not as free and insightful when I am indoors. Because I know what the reason is. It's because I'm up early, the sun's beating down on me, and I feel good. I'm ready to speak through the microphone and offer whatever insight that I have for that day. And I'm unaffected by the day because nothing's happened yet. Which is why timing is so important. When we talked about the transcendence of time, when you look at the sun and the moon, they're also something when you look at them, you can say, I don't have a lot of time left today to get stuff done. It's a reminder. It's a giant clock in the sky. Both of them. They're constantly reminding you that the clock is ticking. That you're, what they say, wasting daylight. Or you're wandering under the moon. You're not doing anything. That was another thing that I really started to think about when it comes to the sun and the moon, is that they're just reminders. They're reminding you constantly that life is going on around you, whether you are going on for yourself or not. You can look at the sun and you can thank it all you want. The sun doesn't even care that you exist. It's too busy fulfilling its purpose. The sun and the moon, they do not care if you exist or not. They don't even know of our existence. They're not what we call, sentient beings. They're not up there making judgments and trying to affect you. Some people say these kind of things when they say, the day hates me. What does that mean? The night scares me. What does that mean? The night is not doing anything to you. The day is not doing anything to you. It goes back to that thing I always say, that greeting I always say, how are you treating life? And that is, I think, an important aspect of each individual. When you wake up every day, regardless of what's going on outside, especially, I am not a wintertime person. And even though that sun's out, I can tell you, I am pissed off living in the Midwest on the cloud cover, with the sun right there. And it's just, even when the sun comes out, it's still cold. It has an effect. We're not even talking about like what time of year the sun's out or what time of year the moon's out. These are just, if you could just take your picture perfect day, how would that make you feel? It has an effect on us. We're constantly being affected by it. The seasons, they all come from the sun. So we're being affected by it every day. I just think there are things we can do to help ourselves get through these things, because I think there's a hopelessness that comes in with, like me, for instance, when I'm in the wintertime. I do not like when the sun goes down at around 4 o'clock. I just feel, because I'm a day person, I feel robbed of my daytime. And I feel it's unnecessary because we as human beings, we do this to ourselves. But we're changing clocks and stuff, but it doesn't matter. Let's just say we didn't change clocks, human interference or not. Just not my cup of tea for the sun to be going down that early. Even if it went down at 5 o'clock, it really wouldn't matter to me. I still would prefer more sunlight. And if I can't have more sunlight, then I need heat. I do not like cold at all. I will tolerate it, but I do not like it at all. These are all things that affect me. Now, if I'm continuously putting myself in this situation when I don't have to, what kind of effect does that have? I notice when the wintertime comes, I can deal with it, but I'm in a much better mood when spring starts to come around. And I believe a lot of people are like that. So I'm not acting like I'm an alien or anything, but I always thought to myself, I hate this time of year. I can't stand when it snows. And I had to start changing my perspective on it. Start thinking, what's the difference? The sun is still coming up. The moon is still coming up. The only thing that's different about it is the temperature and how many clouds are in the sky. That doesn't mean anything has changed. The difference in me is I don't like cold, so I go inside during the winter instead of staying outside more. And once I started having a job where I worked outside more, I started realizing, I'm like, oh, it's cold, but I still feel good. It's because I'm outdoors. That sunlight is still beating down on me. It's not ugly every single day in the wintertime. In the last couple of winters, I've gone through them really no problem. I feel pretty good. I feel just like I do during the summer. It's a perception thing. It's a mindset shift. And it goes back in. How are you treating the day? If you wake up every day and you're saying, I'm going to be miserable because of the weather, well, go ahead over to the column of negativity and put a check mark in it. You've already just said you're going to have a bad day. Essentially, literally a bad day. Because unless the temperature swing is going to be 40 degrees or it's going to stop, it's going to rain for 10 seconds and then stop and then that's it. You know, what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do? The one thing we do know is no matter what the temperature is, the sun is out. We may have storms, there may be things that happens, but the majority of the time, the sun is out. And the same with the moon. There's people that say, you know, I hate when night comes. I wanted the day to continue because of this, this, and this. Well, why does everything have a starting point and an end point with people when it comes to day and night? There really is no start or end. We weren't here at the beginning of the cycle, and we will not be here at the end of the cycle. We're just living in the loop. So why put boundaries on time when it comes to the sun and the moon, day or night? Why say, I only have a few more hours to do this today? Technically, you have a lot more hours to do whatever you were doing. You just have to make adjustments. There's just ways of doing everything, but it's a mindset shift. You have to start shifting the uncomfortable feeling of, I'm so used to doing this at this particular hour, at this particular time, that I can't do it any other time. Now, some people say, well, wait a minute, I thought that was discipline. You can look at discipline that way, where you say, every day at 10 o'clock, I eat the same freaking thing. That could be discipline. That also could be considered, you know, obsessive compulsive disorder. That also could be leaning towards anxiety, fear of not doing the same thing, the superstitious, like if I don't do this, I'm gonna have a bad day. So there could be bad connotations with that. Discipline for me is, it doesn't matter if it's at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 12 o'clock. It's just you're gonna do it within that 12-hour period every single day. It doesn't necessarily, that's still discipline. If you have 12 hours and you say, well, normally I do A, B, and C within these 12 hours during the day, what difference does it make when you do them? The important thing is you did them. That's discipline. No matter what, because this is the problem with people who say, I only do it at 10 o'clock. What happens when you wake up at 10:20 and you're like, I always do it well, I guess I just have to do it tomorrow. Instead of saying, no, I'm up at 10:20, let me just do it right now. There's a difference between discipline and being obsessive compulsive, which tends to lead towards procrastination and excuses. Because if you only do it at a set time or nothing, that's an excuse. You're already building in an excuse. I can't do this because of this. It's too cold. I will only do this if it's this temperature. It's too hot. I will only go walking if it's 80 degrees. These are all excuses. That's not discipline. That's not discipline. That's fear wrapped up in procrastination. Discipline is about whatever the day brings you. When that sun comes up, it doesn't matter what time you do it. What matters is that you do it. And if it spills over into the night, so be it. So we have to always be conscious of how we are mood-wise as alignment in with our fulfillment and our purpose and our peace and our joy and how we're feeling. If there's things that are out of whack, if there's things that aren't balanced out right, you're going to get what happens if the sun and the moon aren't balanced out right up there. There's going to be chaos down here. And I look at the sun and moon, and its effect on me is that it's a reminder that it's time. That there is a clock. It is a clock in the sky that not only is a clock, but is a clock that gives you energy. And for me, the moon gives me perspective. I love going out at night and looking at that moon and just taking it all in. I've always had an obsession with the moon. I love the sun, but of the two, the moon to me is far more interesting. I don't know what it is about that thing. I've always had a fascination with it. It's not just a big rock. There's a lot that goes on with it, and I've always been fascinated with it. But I love the sun as well for what it does. I just think the moon is much more fascinating. And because of that, I get my benefit from it is always, introspection, reflection, being able to dive deeper into who I am. I find that I find affirmations by myself by reciting affirmations on the moonlight differently than if I do it in the sunlight. It's just things like that. But you won't know unless you actually start participating in these exercises. There's people who capture the rays of the moonlight, and they in bottles of water, and you drink them. It's things like that that gives you a connection. When you start thinking of life like that, because what it is about life. When you start thinking about life having a connection, if you can connect with something like that, it really, really does put things in perspective here every single day. It gives you much more to appreciate. And it's a hard subject. People don't want to hear about, most people I've noticed that I've talked to. I can't speak for everyone, but most of the people that I talk to, they don't want to hear about this kind of stuff. They don't want to hear about what the effect of the sun has on you, because they believe they're in control of everything. So they're thinking, well, the sun has nothing to do with my mood, which for them, it may be right. Maybe the sun doesn't. But unless you hate both, one of the two gives you some type of added energy, perspective, or something that you would not have if they both were gone. Something that you privately, if you wouldn't openly admit it, you privately enjoy it. And I think most people do. That's why when we go to parks, we see so many people out there. That's why at night you see some of the best parties, because they set a mood and we're affected by them, positively or negatively. And I believe each person has something inside of them that may not necessarily be connected to the sun and moon directly, but we're so affected by them that a lot of the answers about how you feel as far as your fulfillment in life goes and how you feel about your purpose can be helped by going outside, journaling under the moon, journaling under the sun, doing it really early in the morning, doing it really late at night, finding out different combinations of that to find out, are there any added benefits for you for going outside and thinking about who you are? Not even doing, but just being outside and thinking about, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I content? Is my purpose aligned with my values? And you can ask yourself that inside of a room, indoors. I guarantee you the answer would be much more profound if it was outside underneath the sun or underneath the moon. It may be way out there for people to think like that. But for the people who do appreciate it, I think you get what I'm trying to say here. I think you appreciate the fact that you're connected with everyone in this world, and that there is something outside of us that is bigger than us, that is giving us the reason to have fulfillment, to have purpose, to breathe air. And if we lose sight of that, and if we diminish that reality, we have no hope in fulfilling ourselves as people individually. your mission for today is to ask yourself a question. You don't have to write any of this down. You don't have to go extensively into your, memory banks trying to figure out how you were in the past when it comes to the sun and moon. But ask yourself some simple questions about how you're affected during the day and how you're affected at night. And ask yourself, what time periods throughout the day and night do you seem the most happiest? Do you seem like you get the most productivity out of your day or night? Does it seem more aligned with who you are and as far as fulfillment goes and what your purpose is? Are you more comfortable during the day or more comfortable at night? Are you more fearful during the day or more fearful at night? Ask yourself how day and night, not so much the sun and the moon, because like some people might say, well, that's witchcraft, or that's some kind of weird stuff that you're doing, some kind of out there stuff. It really is the same thing. The day is the sun, the night is the moon. There's no way getting around it. But if we want to just look at day and night, ask yourself those things and really think about how you feel on average consistently throughout your days, and what things and activities and people and places are in your life during the day. And also think about those things at night and see how you're affected by them, and answer your questions truthfully. Because if you're going to look at it as an exercise to say what it is, that doesn't really apply to this particular exercise. You really need to know what you need to know about yourself. This is your day. You are here now. These are your moments. You own them. You are brave, bold, powerful. You do believe in yourself. You know you have more in the tank. You know the glass is half full. There is still more room for improvement. There is no end. Believe, believe, believe in yourself. You do believe in yourself. You do believe you can do whatever it takes to get the job done. You don't procrastinate. You don't embellish. You don't lie. You're true to yourself. Peace is in your mind. Peace is in your heart. Peace is in your body. It is definitely in your soul. You are greatness. You have purpose, intentful purpose. You are here for a reason. You are ambitious. You are loving. You are kind, empathetic, compassionate. You are self-love. You have self-control, self-respect. You are joy, peace, freedom, happiness. You are connected to everything in this world and in this universe. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Learn, laugh, and level up.